Monday, January 28th, 2013, Booth Bay Harbor Selectmen's meeting to order. Introduce Julia Latter, our finance officer, and Kelly Bigos, our secretary, neither of whom are here tonight.
Correct.
Are we going to take the recording?
I'm doing that right now.
You're doing that right now. Excellent. And I will introduce Tom Wooden, our town manager.
Thank you.
And select persons J.D. Warren, Art Hathaway, Valerie Augustine, and Bob Spillane, and I'm Bill Hamlin, chairman. First order of business is to approve the minutes of our January 14th, 2013 meeting.
I'll move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the January 14th, 2013 meeting. Any comments?
Yes.
Mr. Spillane.
Mr. Chairman, the minutes are incomplete insofar as there is no mention in these minutes of the exchange that took place between Selectman Augustine and myself, which was brought to the attention of the newspaper by Katrina, who is here. And so it must be somewhere in the recording, and I'm sure it was left out quite by accident. So until that exchange is properly becomes part of our minutes, I respectfully request that we do not approve the minutes as read.
I suggest that we table this then to our next meeting, and then the interval will have Kelly amend the minutes. Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you. So this is tabled. The next order of business is financials. I'll turn the floor over to Tom.
Thank you. Before Julia left this evening, she dropped off the revenue expenses sheets for you, and also your graphs. Year-to-date revenue is $4,107,674. Total expenses year-to-date $4,557,087. Accounts payable that you'll be signing off on this week is $53,041.89, and our bank balance is currently $1,753,954. And if there are any questions on revenues and expenses, I will do my best to answer them for you.
By our colored graphs, we appear to be overlaying last year's quite closely, which gives me some confidence that things are progressing properly.
I'd be inclined to agree with that.
Yep, I agree.
And as I said privately earlier, the only thing I noticed about the revenue, expense, and bank balance is that very shortly I will be owing more taxes, as we all will. Any other questions?
Nope.
Tom, thank you. Moving on. And now we have town manager announcements, so the floor is back to you.
The only one I have this evening is in your mailboxes. There was a piece of paper that were the bid results for the 4x4 Chevy pickup truck that the fire department is selling off. And you have the 4 bids before you. And I would ask that the board make a decision this evening on which bid to accept. The bids range from $855, $1,000, $1,208, and $3,013.
I would entertain a motion from Selectmen.
So that we approve the bid for $3,013.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the bid for $3,013. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Congratulations, Jim.
I guess that's a bit too high.
No, I think you still got a good deal.
That's all I have for announcements this evening.
That moves us to public hearings. We have 2 tonight. The first one is a liquor license for Mr. C's Food and Spirits, 204 Townsend Avenue, for malt, spiritus, and Venus. The application has been initialed by our police chief. This is a renewal, I'm sure.
Yep.
And everything looks to be in order to my eye.
I move we approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the liquor license for Mr. C's. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, Joe. Second round's on me.
The second part of the public hearing is the continuation of the Wars and Weirs that was held today at 4 o'clock at 180 Western Avenue, which is the yellow house right here on the corner of the causeway, for an application for a 4x4 platform, 4-foot by 12-foot access ramp, 6-foot by 20-foot pier, 3-foot by 34-foot ramp, and a 10 by 20-foot float. And a vote was taken at that meeting and unanimously approved from the selectmen's point of view for this float. So I don't think we need to take any other action with respect to that.
It was approved, right?
It was approved. That concludes the public hearings and brings us to the first public forum. So is there anybody from the audience who cares to speak at this time?
I've got a public forum.
Okay.
Mike Bassett, Booth Bay Borough. The Chamber of Commerce meeting last round, I talked about the parking ticket possibilities and having one that
Yep.
shows race,
Yep.
race on it. And I've got one right here from Sugarloaf, which I would be happy to give you guys.
That would be terrific.
Take a look at it. The wording is, and you can, the officer can check this off to be not applicable, but it says, our guests are very important to us, and we realize that parking violations are sometimes inadvertent. If you have not had a parking violation in the past 90 days, please consider this notice, this violation notice a warning. And we certainly can change wording and that kind of stuff on it, but this is an actual voided out ticket that you guys can take a look at. The company is called Peachtree. I've already done the research and found out where, not much research, I looked it up on the internet, it's not research, on where to get those, and you can order them right online. And if we decide to do it, I would be happy to work with the police department and come up with some wording that...
It's certainly an interesting idea. I have not yet had a chance to talk to Bob Hash about this, but
Yep.
I think we should, and I
And
think we'll
the
follow
police
up on
chief
it.
in Carabassa Valley would be happy to talk with them about it.
You want to take a look at it, and then I suggest we give it to Tom for
Yep.
safekeeping.
Take the legal.
That's right.
Okay. And watch more of that law.
Yeah.
One of your tickets,
It was-
Frank?
That's voided. It's voided right out. I didn't get a ticket. Just checking.
There's no such thing.
I didn't give him a chance. I was out of there pretty quick.
Any other comments?
I have a question. The truck the fire department sent out bids for, what was the former use of it?
It was sort of a multi-purpose vehicle. It's a pickup truck that, I think, Jim, you could probably answer this better since you used it quite regularly.
Truck two, yeah.
Yeah,
The diesel.
yep, yep.
It was always the fire department's?
As far as I know,
Well,
it's
for the
1985.
past 6 years, I guess, and prior to that was police. Ex-military truck.
Thank you.
Anyone else? That moves us to old business, and under old business, we have the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report. I'll turn the floor over to Valerie.
Great, thank you. The biggest news is that our iVantage Gabaro Group report has been finalized and approved, and it is currently on the Register's website, so everybody could read it, and I've given everybody a hard copy of it this evening to take home. The iVantage Health Group was hired to do a study of the healthcare needs of Booth Bay Peninsula and look at the data from the Navigant report that Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health used for their conclusions, and to find out if the data supported closing the emergency room. And we have presented the report to Maine Health and Lincoln County Healthcare at our last meeting with them, and
When was that?
that was Friday.
Friday.
And I believe we'll be, well, we're hoping that they will give us a response sometime and keep meeting, because overall the main message is we're really enjoying, I would say, engaging with them and discussing the issue, and I think we've been able to talk about what what we have found to be the wants and the needs of the Booth Bay Harbor Peninsula. And they've been listening, and we've been listening to them. So that's continued, but we don't have another meeting scheduled at this time with them.
Not about viability report?
We called it the healthcare, the official title is the Market Assessment and Strategic Direction. So the report did find that an emergency room in the Booth Bay Peninsula could be viable, and talked about, it gave specific recommendations for Maine Health and Lincoln County Healthcare, mostly Lincoln County Healthcare, to take a look at. And in conjunction with the work of the strategic direction, our hospital work group has been visiting many of the emergency rooms and community hospitals and different kinds of hospitals, critical access hospitals in Maine, to get kind of best practices from around the state and bring them back. So those, in conjunction with the suggestions from the Gabaro Group and iVantage, will hopefully be considered by Lincoln County Healthcare.
Okay. Any questions for Valerie?
Yes.
Bob?
At the last meeting, I asked if I were to attend a task force meeting, would I be allowed in? And your answer was, with the permission of Chuck Cunningham, who is the chair of that group. But Chuck Cunningham is a selectman of another town, and that concerned me greatly because it showed me that the formation of the task force, and I'll just step back a bit and say I have obviously received, as many of the selectmen have here, this is the address list, indications that St. Andrew's Hospital is viable, and the healthcare consultant gives a community confidence. This is written not by a member of the task force. This is written by the town manager of Booth Bay. All of this suggests to me, because I've asked the questions and done the research, that the task force may or may not be a body that is in the best interests of this community. Certainly the work you've done is good work, and I have no argument with that. But there are people that are associated with the task force who could very readily circumvent the municipal government activities of this board. This board represents the electorate of Booth Bay Harbor. The task force, I'm not so sure that it does, or that it has been set up appropriately for it to do that, because frankly there has been no legislative action to legalize the task force. There's never been a public meeting at which the people of the town of Booth Bay Harbor have had the opportunity to vote to bring such a body into the municipal government of this town. So in fact, it is my opinion that we have given up our right to govern, or I beg your pardon, we don't govern, but to judge the rightness or the wrongness and bring before the town people that elected us our opinion, which seems to me can be subverted by Chuck Cunningham, a selectman from another town. In fact, it's been reported in the Register this week that Sue Mello was denied access to a meeting of the task force. And I find that pretty horrible. As long as Sue Mello was able to attend these meetings and to report, I felt fairly confident that the people of Boothbay Harbor would be properly represented. But I see that the power of Boothbay has finally superseded the municipal government of Boothbay Harbor. It is for that reason that I make a motion that we withdraw as a board in accordance with the written documentation that was provided to this board by the Boothbay town manager that allows us that option before we are totally subverted by someone else. As of today, just to add to information, I did a thorough check because having been actively involved in watching the various meetings of the task force, I see that there are various political activists. This is not a political board, it's not supposed to be. But I see that the representative from District 61 has been talking to people in public saying that he would be prepared to bring forth a bill that would be then voted on by the legislature, which, if it became law, would force the people of Boothbay Harbor to possibly have to adhere to whatever that law is. However, as of today, there has been no bill filed, even though there's been rumors that such a bill has been filed. I have been unable to find that bill in the legislature and in the legislative body that in fact maintains the records of all bills brought before the legislature by elected officials. I'm sorry to be long-winded on this, but again, I believe that once the task force is able to circumvent this board, which it apparently can, or at least has put itself in position to cause the bastion of information in Boothbay Harbor, namely the Register, to be pulled out or called out or not allowed to attend a meeting. I find that to be a bad thing for this town. I therefore say that we should exercise our rights and withdraw. Doesn't mean that the task force can continue. It should continue. But I don't think that we should, as a municipal government of the people of Boothbay, be subservient to Boothbay, the town of Boothbay, both the manager and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, when we have our own board that has served the charter and the people of Boothbay Harbor well in the past.
Okay, I hear a motion on the floor to withdraw from the task force, and do I hear a second? Not hearing a second, the motion dies.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from other selectmen?
Oh,
I guess I would like to speak to a much narrower issue, and then you, would you rather speak now?
Maybe first.
That would be
because
fine.
I think, so, I mean, I feel badly that you feel so strongly about
The motion's
this.
failed, Valerie. There's no reason that you need to say anything.
Well, I just think we should go over a few of those points, just so you can see what my point of view is as one select person on this board. But I think in regards to whether the task force was properly created,
I think
it was
this,
my
Mr.
impression that the
Mr.
Boothbay
Chair.
Harbor Select Board voted to join the task forces the same as the other towns voted. We all signed the agreement to start it.
We can equally,
And then-
Mr. Chairman, I hate
I'm
to,
sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure
well, I think
how come
that,
you got to talk for so long and I can't
My-
continue on a couple
my
of
answer-
points here.
no, my answer is
for the
is
board.
clear. It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
No, I believe she has a right to speak.
Fine.
Thank you. So that would just be my answer on that point. And for the press release, the volunteers, the town manager of Booth Bay, and the task force members all put in work that's done by the task force as a whole. But the task force members, the 4 representatives of the 4 towns, do approve by majority on the press that goes out, and we go through several drafts of what we're going to send out, and that's created not by one person or with the approval of just one person, but it is as a voice from the task force.
So what is a strategic legal effort on your part? Because that is part of the reason that I can't attend a meeting.
Well, for you attending an executive session, I do apologize for what I may have said at the last meeting that upset you about Chuck Cunningham or Jim allowing you to enter. I think personally, as a task force member, and I think all the task force members would agree that if any selectmen wanted to join in the conversations, they would be more than welcome to do so. And we, at executive sessions, often have members of the press there to continue the voice.
But not always.
But not always.
Why is it restrictive at times then, Valerie?
I would say on the manner of the executive session and the press being allowed, I have always supported the press being there.
But the board has not.
Let's have just one at a time and then have an answer at the end if you'd like, Bob.
Okay, so for the executive sessions, I'm sure that the entire task force would agree to have any selectmen join us for that. And so I hope that you didn't feel left out in the cold on that. And then as for the bill that our representative from Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor is putting forward, it's just one part of the task force's efforts, and it's actually a project of Bruce McDonald's, that he is bringing a bill to the House. The bill, I mean, it's the way that democracy would work, would call for a referendum in all of the towns so that everybody would have a chance to vote. It would not by any means be a foregone conclusion based on one person's idea of what healthcare should be in this town.
So you have an assurance that there would be, I'm sorry.
Most definitely. Most definitely there is an assurance that there would be a referendum, that the bill that Bruce McDonald, from my understanding, is planning to bring forward is a bill that would call for a referendum here in all the 3 or 4 towns to vote to see if they wanted to create a community hospital district. And it's my understanding that should you even, no, I won't go on that because I'm not well versed enough in that, but that is what he has stated in the meetings. So I think that's the
All right,
issues
Bob?
that I had written down.
Chairman, it's a, oh, never mind. Well, yeah, it's an old habit. Selectman Spillane has spoken, Selectman Augustine has spoken. I've asked,
I have nothing else to add to it.
I would like to speak at this point, and then we can go back round if we feel we need to. First of all, let me start with a positive. Over the last 2 weeks, I sent an email to Chuck Cunningham, and I got a very nice reply, and in it, I complimented him on the leadership he has shown in stressing the need to work collaboratively between the task force and Lincoln County Healthcare. You know, that's a point I have tried to make from the very early part of this, and I think the task force has been doing that, and I applaud that, and I think that was very good progress, and I wanted to say that publicly as well as privately. I still, however, have concerns about the structure of the task force. Mine are rather more narrowly focused than Selectman Spillane's. And but but I must agree with his comment that I thought that not allowing Sue Mello to attend the meeting was a serious transgression. And the task force wants to have the weight of the community behind them, wants to be a municipal agency, which I believe they are. But one aspect of that responsibility is the need to abide by the Maine's open meeting laws. And we've asked that question of our town lawyer, and he has replied that the task force, in fact, does need to comply with the open meeting laws. So the denial of Sue Mello's to attend the Wednesday night meeting, I found, was a transgression of that municipal responsibility and should not have happened. And I have continuing difficulties with the executive sessions that have been formed, but I have told publicly previously that I was not going to raise that as a big issue because I thought things were progressing and because Sue Mello's presence created a public representation and a public awareness of what was going on that, for me, satisfied the intent of Maine's public meeting law. But to deny her that meeting, access to that meeting, then did not allow the public meeting law, the spirit of the public meeting law, to be executed, and I had a real problem with that. I understand why there's a desire to meet privately. I actually believe there is a need to meet privately, which is why I've been concerned with the structure of the task force from early on. But it is the structure that has been chosen, and the law is clear. And I would urge you to vote against any future executive sessions unless a town lawyer is present. Not just any lawyer, but a town lawyer. Jeff Hull for us, and the town lawyers of the other respective towns that are part of the task force. I think without that those really aren't executive sessions. If Sue Mello is allowed to attend, then as I said previously, I'm reasonably comfortable with what is going on. I think you've made great strides, but I'd hate to see that progress undermined by failure to abide by Maine's open meeting laws. And so that's my personal urging to you. And I know that you voted to have Sue Mello attend that meeting, and I thank you for that, and I think that was the right move. And I would urge you to be forceful in those. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I agree with you, Bill, on what you said in the terminology and the method. The only question I had is when Sue Mello couldn't go to the meeting, and I felt it was an open enough meeting, and we have an executive session, that means it's behind closed doors and you can't have the press and that. But are we getting to the point where we have to have closed doors? I mean, Valerie, do we have to have closed doors necessarily?
Jay, it's my feeling that there wouldn't be a need for executive sessions at this point for the task force in the foreseeable future.
Right, I do comment on, you did a nice job not to, you're doing a good job. And I would say something if you listen. But when we just have to make sure that we are going by Chapter 13. And the Chapter 13 of the law, which everybody's read, 403, 404, states pretty much what an open meeting can do and what it can't do. And I think, and I have a trouble like Bill does with how the task force is set up. I have from day one, and I mentioned that months ago. And I think that they need to relook at how they're doing things. And that's my comment. Okay. Just keep that in mind. And you are representing all of us up there. I mean, we elected you, right, to go in there and represent all four of us when we're not there. But I think we should be able to, any one of us should be able to go to any of those meetings.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. And I make that statement right now. I apologize, I haven't been up there because I respect I respect your knowledge and background and education to do that, because we elected you there to do a job, and that's how I operate. But in all fairness, I think from day one, if any one of us want to go to any of those meetings, I'm talking about executive session, because we are elected board here by the town, by the taxpayers, and I feel involved. You made some good comments. and I appreciate your comments and your feelings on the law and the methods and all that. And I do agree in some aspects of what you said, so Paul and Bill. That's about all I gotta say, so.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say one thing.
Mr. Splain.
The town manager of Boothbay, in his defense of the and I'll use the word loosely, charter that he drew up for this task force, says that it's an interlocal agreement.
It's not.
But that's what he says it is. And you and I have both done the research and both have decided that it is not. My issue is not with the task force, it's with the construction of the task force. There's been no legislative action. There has been no Boothbay Harbor vote taken to create this.
Vote by any of the towns.
But it could have easily, and we've suggested, it could have easily been established as a 501c3. Were it to have been done, we would not be having this discussion. It is not, I'm not against what the hospital task force are doing. I'm concerned that the hospital task force will get themselves and or us into a situation that is beyond what's contained in our charter. And I don't want that to happen because other people will get involved. For example, Valerie, you said a minute ago, and I agree with you, that were a representative of either side to bring a bill before the legislature, that bill would have to go through a referendum process. Right now, there are no bills. Even though I've watched the task force on TV and there's been suggestions that such a bill has been raised, it hasn't, not yet. But if it were, it seems to be a long way ahead that referendum would have to take place. It would be beyond October. You need a device that would move faster. That's my point. I just think that this task force, also, one last point, and I'll make it my last point, is that if you serve on the task force, you also serve on the Boothbay Harbor Board of Selectmen. And that goes for each selectman that's on the task force. It must make it doubly difficult for you to come back and talk to us. And I understand all the implications of that. So when we actually took a vote on something the task force wanted to do, it might be quite difficult. I'm not sure whether you'd have to recuse yourself under the present structure or not, but those are all just open questions, and all the more reason why perhaps you might strive to change the structure of the organization. That's what I'm talking about here, is the structure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob. You done with this part? Yep. I want to thank everyone for frank and open and honest discussion, and a discussion of ideas and not personalities. It's very helpful, and I think in the long run it will be it's good to air these issues.
Thank you.
Under old business, I just wanted to mention I forwarded to each of you electronically a draft of the annual Selectmen's report, and we need to have that by our next meeting, I think, is what's fair. So I would urge you to look at that and make comments and addresses and be prepared to vote on it at our next meeting.
I thought it was wonderful.
Thank you. Anybody else have new business?
We've been busy.
Going once, going twice? That brings us to our second public forum. Helen.
No, I do not. Helen Bunham, Boothbay Harbor, and I am a member of the task force.
Excuse me, but you are not. You are a volunteer for the task force. The task force is comprised...
I am a volunteer. I am sorry.
The task force is comprised of the 4 select persons. Yeah.
But how many times have I stood here and said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of you can come up to any meeting that you want to. I have not seen this gentleman. I've seen you a couple of times. I've seen him a couple of times. I've not, I don't know if Jay's been up once, but I've not seen you since that big meeting up at the school. Now, anybody on this board is welcome to come up there. And there is no reason for you not. If you set in and you know what we're doing, you know what's going on. Bruce does have some things going up to the legislature. This takes a little time and to get everything together. And I'm really upset. Everything is down. We've asked and asked for help from Booth Bay Harbor. And all we get is torn apart. Now, I'm sorry. This is everybody's town. This is everybody's problem. We lose the hospital, your taxes are gonna go up because we need a lot more money for the ambulance service. Every town has to give this, or we lose their valuable service. We've already got other ambulances coming into town. In case you haven't seen them, there's been Waldoboro. We do have Wiscasset down there, we've always had them, and CLC. We've had Northeast. You know, this is everybody's community. The whole kit and caboodle. This is everybody's. And everybody should really take a real good interest and stop tearing people apart. That's what bothers me more than anything. We have a very valuable hospital over here, and it is feasible to have a hospital here. Chris has been on the computer, I don't know how many nights. I don't get the computer maybe 20 minutes a day. But he's on there. He's been digging up this, and this. He has hard copies. We have 3 great big notebooks full. And this is just him and I. We have other people out there that are trying and to get things in order. We might not, I don't know, things might not go exactly the way you want it. But this is the task force. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I could be wrong with this, but I'm hoping I'm not. In a way, yes. But I know you're close to the situation as far as the hospital is concerned. And whether that has entered into it or whether you can discipline yourself too to put that part aside and look at the other end. If people don't come together, what kind of a town do you have? And Valerie is doing a good job. And I did take offense, I'm sorry, I took offense earlier because she was being sort of thrashed here. Valerie's doing a good job of representing Booth Bay Harbor. And she's doing a good job representing the task force. We've had a big meeting up at the school. There's going to be some more meetings up at the school. We got votes from all 4 towns. So don't sit there and tell us we don't have any comments.
Helen, I'm one of the ones who made that vote.
I know.
I know that.
I know. But I'm going of what I just heard. And that's why I'm upset. I don't usually get this upset. But this means a lot to me. That we have a hospital in this town. People are losing businesses every day. The restaurant closed or whatever down in 93 Townsend. The golf course went out. We lose the hospital. That's a beautiful entity, and it brings in stuff, brings in money to us. Look at all the supplies in the stores and everything that we get. If you have doctors here, they come here to live. And nurses, you know, I'm watching the time too. You know, and, you know, all the businesses here will thrive. And in the summertime, you have more people that influx in here. We need this hospital, and this is what our aim is. But we're sitting up there trying, but I really don't want to hear again that nobody has been invited, because you all have been, and I have done it right here. And I have invited every one of you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen, I understand your passion, and it's good to see passion. But with all due respect, I think you didn't hear what I intended to say, or maybe I said it poorly. I started my speech with a compliment to Chuck and his leadership.
I was wondering what he said, well, I heard what you said,
And believe me, I don't think any of these selectmen are, have in their heads that we're trying to somehow go after Valerie. I think she's doing a terrific job, and several of us have said that. But the legal structure of the task force gives us great concern. And as much, let me finish, as much passion as we have, and as you have for the task force, you've got to pay attention to the legalities in the structure. You can't ignore that. You really can't. It's at your peril. It puts your good works at risk if you ignore those issues. So I think somebody should be aware of those issues and facing those issues, and that's my point, is to try and keep that in the forefront.
I understand that it takes a little time, but we do have lawyers, we have judges, we have local people, we have other people there. But we have people from all walks of life there. A lot of people from the village. We have people that attend for the hospital.
I understand that, but that doesn't address the structural issue.
No, I know. But we do have the lawyers, okay?
But
in that structure.
It's quite clear, though, the existence of a lawyer does not constitute the need for an executive session.
That I couldn't talk on because I do not know.
But that's what I'm addressing.
Yeah. I don't know that much about that particular item.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't talk on that part.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to address Mrs. Farnham. Mrs. Farnham, I'm really sorry that you thought that I was trashing Valerie Augustine. Selectmen, well, that's your opinion. Valerie Augustine and I both serve on this board as equal members of this board. We both respect each other. I respect Valerie for what she does, and I had no intention of trashing Valerie. If I did, in your opinion, then I apologize to you. But Valerie knows that I didn't trash her. She and I have tried to communicate on various times during the day. It is not a question of trashing each other. It's doing what's right for both the task force and the people of Booth Bay Harbor. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in public forum? Going once, going twice, Katrina.
I just have a question about it, about municipal law. In an executive session, are members of the public allowed?
The Maine state law, under my research, is nearly silent on who can attend an executive session, with the exception if you're holding an executive session for a personnel issue, a reprimand or possible dismissal, then the person under consideration is required to be in the executive session. Other than that, I could not find any reference in Maine law as to who determines who is and is not present in an executive session.
So legally, the task force can hold an executive session, invite members of the public in, and exclude other members. I just want to know the laws. I'm
not a lawyer. My reading of it is that there is no mention of who determines who is present in an executive session, and that's really all I can go by.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Frank.
Is your executive session and an organization like being the town of Booth Bay Harbor's executive, selectmen's executive session, and the task force executive sessions, or task force like executive sessions, are they different?
No, the Maine state law speaks to town officials.
So when you have an executive session here and we have to leave, or do we assume that's because it's a personnel issue?
No, you're told.
When you
Sorry.
when you have an executive session, you are required to state under which of the 6 exemptions
Okay.
you are holding an executive session. And before we hold an executive session, you will hear us say pertaining to, and it could be acquisition of property, it could be a legal consultation, it could be a personnel issue, but you'll hear that before the executive session.
Okay, and then the personnel, when you ask us to leave, that's because it's personnel?
No, any executive session, the public is excluded.
The public is excluded. Under MRSA 405, that determines, that is a state determination of how a municipality can, like a board of selectmen, can hold an executive session. Under there are 6 designations. Under those designations, you are allowed to discuss certain issues privately as a board to protect essentially the interests of the person, especially if it's a personnel issue. If you want to take legal action,
Yep.
that has to be in executive session. It's so that the public doesn't go running around with people's names and so on and so forth. It's a very simple, straightforward, thou shalt not have the public in there. You do your thing. You cannot make a decision in an executive session. It is forbidden. So you cannot make a decision to do anything. You have to come out of executive session, go back and invite the public back in the room and say, we made no decisions. And you've got to be able to say that straight face.
Yeah.
Or if you did make a decision, you have to honestly state what that decision was.
Okay, so maybe I heard it wrong. An issue prior to this, I believe, was Sue Mello being excluded from executive session. Was that not?
Correct.
Yes.
It's an issue for me, yes.
The issue,
She's a member of the public and
But-
not a member of.
she is also a registered newspaper reporter. The issue is not, what this issue is, an executive session applies, Mr. Chairman, to a municipal body only, to a state government or a municipal government. It's a government issue, MRSA, Maine State Revised Statutes, or whichever way I'll get it right one of these days.
Understood.
But a private corporation, any corporation that is not a municipal corporation, the board of directors can ask the public to leave and they can go into closed executive session and discuss any subject that they wish. And they can exclude actually who they wish because they're a private corporation.
So the task force is a private corporation?
No,
Well, is it?
Two other points, Frank. If we asked our lawyer, did the task force need to operate under the Maine Freedom of Access laws, and that includes open meetings and the right to go into executive session? And he replied that they did. Okay, so they are a municipal, under his ruling, they need to operate as municipal officials operating under the Maine Freedom of Access Act.
Just like you do?
Just like we do.
And
Okay.
we've been, as a task force, entering into the executive session under the ruling about legal discussion.
And the other point that I wanted to make is when you enter into executive session, as Selectman Spillane said, you need to state before the executive session what you're going to be discussing. And you can discuss only that issue. You may not discuss any other issues. And quite frankly, I personally have a problem with the task force procedures of declaring executive sessions. Because while there is a lawyer present, I believe, and because Sue Mello has been there, they've been talking about a wide-ranging number of subjects. And therefore, I don't believe it's been a true executive
So
session.
they're not following executive session rules?
I don't believe they have been.
Okay.
But I wasn't gonna be upset about that because Sue Mello was there, we had public representation,
Right.
there was progress being made. But when she was excluded, that's what caused me to be upset.
I guess I'm just still confused why they can go into executive session and invite, and if they want to have her there, they can. If they don't, they don't.
As I said,
She can't stay for yours.
Maine, Maine state law doesn't comment on who decides who can attend an executive session or not. It is not unreasonable that the board that declares the executive session determines who can attend, with the exception of the personnel issues.
But, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may add to that, the real problem is that you're right. If the task force is truly a municipal body, if it is, then it's subject to the same rules that we've just espoused. If it isn't, then what is it?
Okay.
And that is the issue, because as our chairman has said, we have asked our lawyer, the town lawyer that represents the people of the town and us in our representations, does the Freedom of Access Act apply to the task force? He believes it does, but he doesn't state why. And we, the chair and I believe the whole board has asked our town manager to ask Mr. Hull, what is the basis for your statement that the FOAA, the Freedom of Access Act, does apply? For those of us that have all taken the courses at Maine Municipal, we understand the difference between the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal act, and the Freedom of Access Act, which is a Maine state law and applies specifically to Maine. So the Freedom of Access Act, which determines whether the meetings are public or not, the basis you've been unable to find out up to this point. He hasn't come back to
I
us.
guess my real question here is, it says executive session on this agenda, whether you have one or not tonight or not.
Right.
Okay?
If we have one, it's stated why we're meeting.
Okay, so if you have an executive session tonight, pretend you do, are we able to stay in it?
No.
No.
Okay, is the paper able to stay in it?
No.
Even if you wanted them to, you couldn't invite them?
My personal view is if we were to invite the paper to come to an executive session, it would not be an executive session.
Okay.
It would be a public session.
So that's fine, that's the way I understood.
Yeah.
I understand that you need to get all your ducks in a row sometimes before you make your decisions, and that's all well and fine.
Yep.
Then my question is, why then can the task force decide whether or not Sue Mello or anybody can stay?
Frank, I think
I'm
the
just,
question is Bill's personal opinion is, if the press is there, then it's not an executive session. But that was not the task force's opinion. And
Okay.
the task force's opinion was that the law clearly, in this case, clearly does not state anything
Okay.
about who can attend. So we felt that we could invite members, certain people, to come into the executive session.
okay, I
It
was
does
really
not
trying-
clearly state either way.
I was
So
really
that's
trying
the
to muscle my way
question
with your
now.
executive session too. But I guess that's not gonna happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. So
Any other public comments? Going once, going twice?
Once, just to say,
I'm all done, don't confuse
just
me
to say,
anymore.
no, I'm not, but that's the
I'll
quandary.
do something else, I'll filibuster, I swear.
That's good, so will I. The quandary of the task force and their decisions, this is the quandary I have. What are they? Are they a this or a that?
Yeah, I wasn't so concerned with that, again, I was just trying to get it on your side.
And this is why I have felt that the structure is awkward for them from early on. Going once, going twice?
That was quick.
Yeah, you bet. We have no executive session tonight.
I should have.
Do I hear a motion on the warrants?
Move to approve the warrants upon review.
It's interesting how Mike.
It's been moved, excuse me, it's been moved and seconded that the warrants be approved upon review. Any discussion? All in favor? We are now down to the motion to adjourn. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
There can be no discussion. All in favor? We are adjourned.